Chapter 4. The early Roman Catholic Church strained to develop a consistent philosophy. As a result, multiple sects appeared, riffing off the basic idea of a risen God. To counter the varied claims, church leaders originated the concept of heresy. Previously, people could and did join many religions. To accommodate them, Jews developed a series of rules that Gentiles could follow so they would be accepted in the Jewish community. Called Noahide laws, they were conceived by sages who tried to figure out how Noah could be called righteous in the Bible when he lived before Abraham, who the religion considers the first Jew. The resulting laws required following the proper diet, believing in one God and similar general restrictions, allowing for the existence of God-fearers. Christians never came up with anything akin to that. Instead, church leaders retained their grip on the religion by expelling dissidents. Among those ousted were famed early theologians Marcion, Origen, and Tertullian, as the tenets of the faith continued to solidify. Evictions didn't deter proponents of new ideas, who were often trying to reform the religion or saw themselves in prophets. Instead of stifling religious innovation, Christianity initiated a new era in the development of religion. Here are some of the religions that sprung up in the subsequent 600 years after Jesus. Montanism. Montanus, who lived in the middle of the 2nd century CE, was one of the early Christians to develop his own religion, which was also known as New Prophecy. It developed in the northern area of what is now Turkey, but was then called Phrygia. Early church leader Tertullian was branded a heretic after agreeing to head the western branch of Montanus sect in Phrygia. Around 160 CE, Montanus concluded that the church existing then was not ready for Jesus to return. Bishops were fighting each other, while the religion itself was still under attack by the Roman emperors. A teacher, Montanus decided he was the Holy Spirit incarnate and wanted to encourage the speaking in tongues described in several biblical books. The technical term for that behavior is glossolalia, tongue-talking, a reference to speaking a non-existent language. The process is documented in ancient non-Christian religions and remains a hallmark of some modern sects, such as Pentecostals. While the Bible had not been compiled yet, various books were circulating. Some of the lines about glossolalia that inspired Montanus include, "And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance." Acts 2:4. When the day of Pentecost arrived, they were all together in one place. And suddenly, there came from heaven a sound like a mighty rushing wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. And divided tongues as of fire appeared to them and rested on each one of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. Now there were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. Acts 2:1-47. And when Paul had laid his hands on them, the Holy Spirit came on them, and they began speaking in tongues and prophesying. Acts 19:6. And he said to them, "Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons, they will speak in new tongues, they will pick up serpents with their hands, and if they drink any deadly poison, it will not hurt them. They will lay their hands on the sick, and they will recover." Mark 16:15-18. For to one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by the one Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another the ability to distinguish between spirits, to another various kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. All these are empowered by one and the same Spirit, who apportions to each one individually as he wills. 1 Corinthians 12:8-11. Montanus divided his followers into two units, believers and the pneumatakoi, spirit-filled, Christians. Montanus taught that only pneumatakoi could enjoy a life of true holiness or godliness, an idea that bothered church leaders. They felt that the Holy Spirit inhabited everyone. Little is known about Montanus' life, and he became the subject of fierce denunciations in surviving Catholic literature. Supposedly a former priest of Apollo, he reportedly converted around 156 BCE. Jerome, who compiled the first Bible, called Montanus abscissum et semiverum, castrated and half a man, letters 41 to Marcella. As a priest of Cybele, Montanus was reported to have hanged himself. Later, Augustine claimed that Montanus celebrated communion with bread prepared using the blood of infants. De Haeresibus Liber 26. The same false blood libel haunted Jews in the Middle Ages. None of that biography is probably true. However, Montanus did begin prophesying and delivering oracles. Bishop Eusebius, who wrote the first known history of Christianity, reported in the 4th century, hundreds of years after Montanus' death, that Montanus fell into an ecstasy and began to speak and utter strange words, prophesying in a way which was against the tradition and custom of the Church. Citing the appearance of women in the holy texts and the line in Joel 2:28-29, insisting that both men and women would receive the Spirit. In the last days, Montanus encouraged female participation in his church. 2 women, Priscilla and Maximilla, reportedly prophesied and delivered oracles which their followers regarded as direct revelation from God. Hippolytus of Rome, a famed theologian who was a child in Montanus's heyday, wrote scornfully about these 2 women. They magnify these females above the apostles and every gift of grace, so that some of them go so far as to say that there is in them something more than Christ. Montanus was motivated by his feeling that the Church was in decline and so advocated for a more stringent lifestyle. He was also convinced the world was soon to end. Church leaders were less enthusiastic, although the concept helped initiate the religion. They preferred stability. Montanus rejected the status quo and announced that Jerusalem would descend to earth in Timian and Pupusa, 2 neighboring cities in Phrygia, now Uşak province in western Turkey. Neither city has definitely been located by modern archaeologists. Initially, Montanus and his followers multiplied to the point that the sect was accepted by the Church. According to Eusebius, in an effort to heal the breach in the Church, Christians in Gaul asked Rome to welcome new prophecy. In turn, Pope Eleutherius, 174-189, did not condemn the Montanists. His successor, Victor, 189-199, initially followed through by accepting the Montanists and acknowledging their prophetic abilities. The honeymoon was brief. Victor changed his mind, and in 230, the Synod of Iconium excommunicated members. Less than 100 years later, Emperor Constantine closed their churches. Montanists lost their property, leaders were executed. Emperor Justinian completed the annihilation in the 6th century.